we might as well begin. Good evening, friends, and greetings from St. Michael's Parish Church here in the town of Enniskillen, which you will know well. Father Raymond invited me to come along and just say hello as the parish priest and to greet you, and I'm very happy so to do. And in doing so, I want to greet too the teachers and staff of all the various schools that are involved in this team effort, which, please God, will bear fruit later in the month of May. I want to, because as we all know now from the lockdown, if anyone could teach, we'd all be teachers. And I'm afraid we learned the hard way that in fact teaching is a skill, and classroom assistants and all the different people in the staffs of the school. It's really, really important, and they are a great blessing to our children, and something we value, and I just want to mention that at the start. I want to thank James, who's here just before me. James has enabled the technological end of this thing to happen. Friends, we had no idea a few weeks ago what exactly we were going to do. We got word from the diocesan office that, we could go ahead all right, provided that the civil circumstances permitted. But, how do we have meetings in a time like this? So we just had to do something, and I'm very grateful for the advice and for the help that has made this come about, and delighted that we could be together by these electronic means. The webcam in the church went in 2012. It's surely coming into its own these days. And of course, the reason we were able to put it in was because people had made contributions that enabled that to happen. So I'm very grateful for that indeed. Friends, the title of tonight's presentation, which is the first of a few, is a community of faith and friendship in Jesus Christ. And the two words that stand out to me even more highly at the moment in these pandemic times are the word community and friendship. Because I don't know about you, but certainly for me in these lockdown times, I very much miss the interaction, the banter. Life is quiet. And we just don't have the level of pleasant connections that are so important. We realize now that this matters to us, and this helps to make us who we are. It's one of the things that children may be missing learning in school, but they're also missing their friends. And this is such a constituent part of life. And here we are, the sacraments that we are about to embark on with the children are in a sense cultivating what's already there in terms of connection with others through a sense of community and through friendship. And, to say Jesus Christ is to say somebody who lived the supreme life, who dealt with, who first of all demonstrated self-sacrificing, self-giving love, which is so important in any house or home and so important in any community, and who taught us to have faith. If we knew everything, we wouldn't need to have faith. But friends, we don't know everything. We don't have a full understanding of everything. Our grasp on life is limited, and yet it's not without point. Faith helps us to make sense and yields such wonderful fruit in hope and love that it surely has to be worth handing on to the generations to come. And that's the bigger picture of what we're involved in. That's one of the reasons why we're doing all of this, and why Father Raymond has gone to the trouble of ensuring that this would happen, and why James does it, and why everybody in school is involved in these things, because there's a level of caring involved there for the cultivation of these young girls and boys, these young hearts and minds and souls that are the future of our community and that will be cultivating the next generation. I hope and pray that you will participate faithfully and be rewarded richly for what you are undertaking in this very special year. I now hand over to Father Raymond and thank him for his work. I have to go to a meeting at this stage, so God bless. Thanks. Thanks, Jim.
Friends, it's good to be here. We do miss meeting you in person and meeting the children in school. This isn't the same, but it's certainly the best we can do given the circumstances at the present time. So rather than do nothing, it's better to do something. And we're very grateful for the fact that you are tuning in over our parish webcam this evening. And of course, there will be a recording of this presentation, so for those who haven't been able to watch it live, you will have an opportunity to watch it back. This evening's presentation is very much about formation for you as parents and guardians. When you think about it, the children receive excellent information and formation about faith in their various schools through the hard work of committed teachers and school staff. So this evening is very much about you and your own faith formation. It's an opportunity for you to take the time this evening, to take time out of busy lives, take time to reflect on your own faith journey, your own faith story. And don't even begin to wonder about how perfect or imperfect your faith is. No matter how weak or strong, we all need an opportunity and time to reflect on faith. And that links in, of course, to the meaning of life. A few years ago, I had the misfortune of breaking down, and you can imagine what was going through my mind. I was hurrying to an appointment, and lo and behold, stopped in my tracks about right. And move on to the next slide. You'll see that I was probably a little bit like this guy on the ground, imploring God, why me? Why did this have to happen right now? And lo and behold, I had the good fortune of being able to contact a garage and a pickup lorry, and a mechanic came to collect me. I had to be towed away, but in being stopped in my tracks, I had the great fortune of having a wonderful conversation with the mechanic as we drove to the garage. He could tell very clearly that I'm a priest. He could see the collar, so there was no mystery about that. And he asked me a few very simple and yet profound questions. The first question was very much about why. Why do we need religion at all? Why do we need to believe in God? And his second question, what's it all about anyway? Well, I can tell you, I was certainly stopped on my tracks once again. He caught me out about right. How do you answer such questions? I thought to myself. And yet there is a simple answer. Yes, it's certainly all about what we see in the pictures here before us, especially in relation to First Holy Communion. We have the Communion Mass, we have First Reconciliation, we have the party afterwards, the money, the cards, and all the lovely gifts. Yes, all of this is very important. But a bit like Christmas, Jesus is the reason for the season. The tinsel points to something greater, or at least it should. There's so much we could say about the questions that the mechanic put to me, the why and what's it all about. But very simply, when you think about it, it's about a person. What we are doing here and now, what we do as people of faith, is about a person, the Son of God, Jesus Christ. God so loved the world, as John's Gospel tells us, that he sent his only Son into the world to save us. God became one of us so that we could know and love him, and so that we could live this great gift of life to the full. You'll see in the next slide very clearly the sacrament of baptism. Baptism is the first great moment in our story of faith. Through the waters of baptism, new life is welcomed into God's family, a family of faith and friendship in Jesus Christ. And you as parents and guardians of your children are the first educators in the life of faith. What an awesome responsibility that is. Yes, the priest, the parish schools and other schools, we all play an important role in helping in the faith formation of our children. But it's you, the parents, who are the primary educators in the life of faith. You teach your children the story of faith, the prayers of faith. You offer your own story of faith, and you share with them the blessings that you have received in life. And so much of what I want to say to you this evening is not about the Holy Communion program that the children are doing in school or in parish, but it's about giving you the permission to reflect and understand your own faith journey, that you have a story to tell that's worth sharing with your children. Before his ascension into heaven, Jesus promised his disciples, "I will be with you always." His promise is to us for all time, and what a promise it is. The Gospels show that Jesus was always there to support and strengthen people at important times in their lives. And so he was with us in a very special way in our own time, present to us in the sacraments of the Church. The word sacrament means, very simply, a holy mystery, a special gift from God. And if it's a gift, we don't hide a gift. We don't leave it unwrapped. We celebrate a gift and we share it with others. Baptism is a sacrament. It's the first sacrament we receive, the first gift of God to us. Next, you will guess, is First Confession, and then Holy Communion, the two sacraments that are particularly important to us at this present time and in this presentation. These are all special gifts and moments in our faith lives. In each of the sacraments, we celebrate the presence of Jesus in the key moments of our lives today. There are 7 sacraments, and don't worry, I'm not going to list out all the sacraments just this evening. But there are 7 sacraments in which we recall and reenact the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Just reflect and think for a moment. The key moments that you have celebrated since baptism. Yes, many of those key moments celebrate Jesus and your personal encounter with him. This personal encounter through the sacraments is always an invitation to transform ourselves, to change and to become more like Jesus, to follow him in lives of discipleship. Sacraments, these special gifts from God, this special mystery, these are never an end in themselves. Through them, we become renewed and transformed. You see at the end of the last slide I said to be continued, so we'll go into much more detail in our next presentation about sacraments. For now, I would like to just change the tone a little, take a break from talking about sacraments in particular, to focusing in a more general way on God's presence in our lives. And this forms part of our faith story, those interesting little moments and times where we have really experienced God alive and active in our lives. The awareness of the invisible presence of God in our lives is called a sense of the sacred. I'm sure if we think for a moment, we can all think of moments when we have said things in prayer, when we have asked for things in prayer, and when prayers have been answered. And afterwards, we have said, only for that prayer, thank God my prayer was answered. And we do this in good times and in bad. We sense that presence, that sacred presence of God in our lives through the trials and tribulations, the joys and sorrows of life. Friends, I would like to share with you a beautiful reflection. The reflection has the title Footprints, and in the previous slide there you could see that image of the shore, the sea, the sand, and the set of footprints in the sand. Now this reflection is nothing new. It's a well-known reflection, but it has a very important message, and I think it will help us reflect this evening. One night I had a dream. I dreamed I was walking along the beach with the Lord, and across the sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene, I noticed two sets of footprints in the sand. One belonged to me, and the other to the Lord. When the last scene of my life flashed before us, I looked back at the footprints in the sand. I noticed that many times along the path of my life, there was only one set of footprints. I also noticed that it happened at the very lowest and saddest times in my life. And this really bothered me, and I questioned the Lord about it. Lord, you said that once I decided to follow you, you would walk with me all the way. But I noticed that during the most troublesome times in my life, there is only one set of footprints. I don't understand why, in times when I needed you most, you should leave me. The Lord replied, my precious, precious child, I love you, and I would never, never leave you during your times of trial and suffering. When you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. Friends, that little reflection and prayer speaks for itself, and I'm sure that each and every one of us can relate to that experience. And so our challenge, your challenge in this journey of faith, is to discover the catechist in you. Now, that seems like it's going to be very complicated, and perhaps this is a new word, a word you're not familiar with. Don't worry, it's not supposed to be complicated. You don't need a qualification necessarily to be a catechist in the sense that I mean. By virtue of your baptism, you are called, chosen, and claimed for Jesus Christ. You have permission and a mission to be his presence in the world. It's not about expert knowledge in relation to the faith, but it is about having a heart filled with the love of Jesus and living this love in word, deed, and action. Remember, St. Francis of Assisi once said, "Preach the gospel, and if necessary, use words." Our lives, by the way we live, should preach the gospel. So, in terms of you, your challenge, discovering the catechist in you, know from this evening's presentation that you have the permission and the mission to be a catechist, especially for your children and for your family. A catechist is someone who helps people come to a personal meeting with Jesus Christ. The needs of a community are not met by one person alone, but by members of the community. You see in St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians, "Now you together are Christ's body, but each of you is a different part of it. Each and every one of us has something to offer in the life of faith and in sharing the story of faith." Yes, a catechist, by the definition that I've given you, has a very specific role, say, in a parish or within a diocese. They are trained in a particular way. But in a sense, this is no different from the kind of catechist that I'm asking you to be as parents and guardians. In this journey of faith, we are all in it together. In John's Gospel, it is Andrew who introduces people to Jesus. Andrew, we hear in John's Gospel, met his brother and said to him, "We have found the Messiah," which means the Christ, and took Simon to Jesus. Isn't this what we are all called to do as followers of Jesus, as his disciples, to introduce one another to the Lord? Discipleship is never a private matter. It means reaching out in concern, in care, and in love. So how do you do this? Well, firstly, your aim is to help your child to know and to love Jesus. Before I can introduce one person to another, I must first have come to know them both. You must come to know and love Jesus in a personal way. And as I mentioned in a previous slide, we don't make this complicated. We begin with our personal experience of faith, and each and every one of us is well qualified to reflect that to others. In the next few slides, I'm going to offer you, if you like, a kind of a toolbox, a method, a way of beginning to reflect on these faith stories, which will be important for you to share with children. There's a lovely little quotation from a Vatican document, an apostolic exhortation from the mid-70s, and you see it here on the slide before you. In the long run, is there any other way of handing on the gospel than by transmitting to another person one's personal experience of faith? I think that sums it up very beautifully and indeed very simply. And so, friends, I'd like to offer you, if you like, a specific way of thinking and reflecting about this. Now, ordinarily, when we would gather for a parents' meeting, I would give parents a little page with a diagram or with a line on it and instructions to follow. So I'm going to try and do that now, but please understand that I will make this part of the presentation available on the parish website, and it's something that you can do in your own time. It's very simply a little exercise, an activity of a timeline. And the timeline begins from your earliest memories to your most recent memories. And the timeline invites you to reflect on times when you consciously turn to God in life, during good times and during difficult times. So just hear me out for a moment. It might be helpful for you to close your eyes and to imagine the timeline. And then, as it said, I will make the little pro forma page available on our parish website, and perhaps you might take some time out and do this at a later date. So, if you find it helpful, please close your eyes. Imagine a timeline. So this line begins with your earliest memories and ends with your most recent memories, the present day. If you can imagine now, below the line, make the letter H 3 times. This H represents 3 happy times for you. Place the letters approximately at the date they occurred. So for instance, it could be a happy memory from childhood, a particular memory. It could be another memory, say from maybe 10, 15 years ago. It could be a more recent memory. So place the letter H along the timeline 3 times, representing happy times in your life. Now, still below the line, mark the letter U 3 times. This represents 3 unhappy times that you can remember in life. So with your eyes still closed, just begin to imagine where you would place those 3 letters, the letter U. Now we move above the line. Mark the letter E to represent 3 significant events. So these may or may not coincide with the happy times or the unhappy times. So the letter E to call to mind 3 significant events. still above your timeline, make the letter C 3 times to represent 3 times when you had to make a choice or a decision. So friends, James is just representing this visually for us. I know you don't have the sheet of paper before you, and I will make that available. But you can see a timeline. You can see where the letters have been marked out along the timeline. And you'll notice that a circle has been placed around particular letters. So that's your last task. So in your imagination, think of the times, anywhere along the timeline, any letter, when you consciously turn to God in prayer. And now, in your mind, place a ring around that letter, that happy time, that unhappy time, that event, that choice. So friends, I think you might realize from that little exercise, I know we've done it very quickly, that these happy times, unhappy times, events, choices, decisions, these are yours. And they represent your story of faith, especially when you can think of a time when you consciously turn to God in prayer and petition. These are the most credible witness to faith that you can pass on to your children. I know from my own experience of growing up, I loved to hear parents and grandparents talking about little incidental moments in their lives, moments of faith, moments that helped and supported them throughout life. These moments are the bedrock of your own faith story, your own journey. And I can guarantee you they will provide an inspiration for your children. On the next slide, you'll see another little activity which, again, you can do in your own time in a more formal way if you would like to. Think about 5 blessings that you have received in life. And don't worry if you can't think of all 5 now, even think of one. It could be the fact that you met the one you love in life. It could be the blessing of having a child you longed for. It could be the fact that you've overcome illness. So many blessings. I'm only giving you a few ideas of things that you might call to mind. Again, mentally think about these and write them down, if you like, in your mind. And so, friends, those little activities, I know we've gone through them quite quickly, but they will provide you with a little toolbox, a help and support as you guide your children on this journey of faith. Faith sharing and a personal commitment to Christ is essential for the next generation. Young people model what they see and experience. And sadly, many are deprived of a history of faith through no fault of their own. But thankfully, we together can provide that story, that history. And I know that parents already do so much in caring for children. But can I make a very special appeal to you and your goodwill? Please make a point of teaching the story of faith to your children. Tell them your story of faith, all those little incidental moments. They will be fascinated by them. Teach them the prayers of faith, the very basic prayers, from being able to sign oneself in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, the Hail Mary, the Our Father, the Glory be to the Father, the very simple and most basic prayers of faith. Do your best to participate in the life of the church through attending Mass when it's, of course, permissible to do so now that we're in this pandemic. That's not possible. But it is possible to make a special effort to gather the family around a TV screen, a computer screen, a tablet screen, and to say this is sacred time where we're going to attend Mass in a virtual way. The greatest gift that you can give your children is the gift of faith. But as I said earlier, it's so important that we don't leave this gift unwrapped, unloved, unwanted. It must be celebrated, and it must be talked about, it must be shared. One of the saddest things that I experience as a priest is to meet people at happy times and sad times. For example, it could be the celebration of a wedding mass. Another time could be gathered around the bed of someone who is dying, calling to a wake house, and meeting these lovely, lovely people, but people who haven't a clue of faith, haven't the first notion of a prayer. And it saddens me because they are left really bereft. They have nothing to hold on to, nothing to make sense of the mystery of life and death. And so I offer you every encouragement to do your best to bring these little ones up in the life of faith. And from our point of view, we will certainly do our best to assist you in every way possible, through the parish and through our parish schools and through the other schools and people who collaborate with us. Friends, I'd like to conclude now with a little prayer. And if you can see the screen clearly enough, please feel very welcome to pray this prayer with me. I think it sums up in so many ways so much of what we've been talking about and what we are about as disciples of the Lord. Holy Mary, Mother of God, you have given the world its true light, Jesus, your Son, the Son of God. You abandoned yourself completely to God's call, and thus became a wellspring of goodness which flows forth from him. Show us Jesus, lead us to him. Teach us to know and love him, so that we too can become capable of true love and be fountains of living water in the midst of a thirsting world. Dear friends, that is my sincere prayer for all of you, that for each other you will become fountains of living water in the midst of a thirsting world. In terms of some practical matters, the specific dates for Holy Communion will be confirmed shortly and published on our parish website. You will see there is a tab there already, Holy Communion 2021. And when you click on that tab, you will see the range of dates for Holy Communion, but the more specific dates for each class group, because this year we will be doing as last year, we will be having our Holy Communions in class groups. So keep an eye on the website and that will be updated within the next couple of days. Very importantly, our Do This in Memory Mass takes place, our first Do This in Memory Mass takes place this Sunday. And this is a very important part of the formation for children in the life of faith, and in a very particular way in preparation for First Confession and First Holy Communion. So I invite you to make a special effort to tune in to that Mass. It's the 10:30 Mass on Sunday, the 14th of February. I think at this stage most of the children have received the Do This in Memory pack. If you haven't received it, you will receive it very soon. I know that the schools are making a special effort to send this pack out along with other correspondence and homework from school. So the Do This in Memory pack contains a leaflet called The Grapevine. You'll see a selection of leaflets, and these correspond with the various Sundays that are assigned to the Do This in Memory program. There's also a book that comes with the program called the Thumb Book, and this book helps teach the children the prayers of the Mass. So I'd ask parents to make a special effort to go through the Thumb Book and to help your children understand Mass. I will refer to the book at Mass, so it's important that you keep the little grapevine leaflets before you and the Thumb Book. I'll direct the children to open the book on a particular page, for example. And with the Do This in Memory pack, there is a lovely poster, an A3 size poster, which has a number of prayers, morning prayer, for example, night prayer, grace before and after meals, the Hail Mary and the Our Father, the very basic prayers of faith. It'd be lovely to see this poster placed in a prominent place in the home, in the dining room or the kitchen or wherever that may be, and for the children to refer to the page and to make a special effort to say the prayers and to learn the prayers over the next couple of weeks and months. So in relation to the Do This in Memory pack, if your child hasn't already received that pack, they will receive it very soon, certainly within the next couple of days, and hopefully in advance of our first Do This in Memory Mass on Sunday. So friends, it simply remains for me at this point to thank you for tuning in this evening. It's been wonderful to share with you this evening this presentation. I wish you well on the journey of faith. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact the parish and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Sincere thanks to all our schools and teachers who are particularly involved in school staff with the children preparing for First Holy Communion and for First Confession. And a special word of thanks to James for his input this evening in preparing this audiovisual presentation. I think I'm the first now to road test these new studio lights, so we're getting used to studio lights as well. I know that we had our first presentation last week and that was a bit of a learning curve, and so we're hoping to improve the presentation each time. Friends, thanks, God bless, and stay safe.